Okay, we're here with Ronnie Yeates. He's a candidate for Justice of the Peace, Court 3. That's Eden Connolly's seat. Today's Thursday, November 30th, 2017. I'm John Wirtz, and with me is Pat Tibbs, Dennis Tibbs, Bob Bagley, Maureen Ball, Del Fessenden, and Larry Rogers. And Ronnie, as we discussed, you can start off with 5 minutes on an opening, and then we'll do the Q&A after that, and then wrap it up after.
Sounds good. I'd like to thank y'all for having me out here tonight. I got to meet some of y'all the other night. I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys. I look forward to being the new JP here. I want to build on a foundation that's already been laid. I want to bring my experience. I've been dealing in law and different variations in the court for almost 20 years now. I worked as an intern at the Montgomery County DA's office when I went to Sam Houston State University. While I was there as an intern, I acted as an investigator handling homicide and cold cases here in Montgomery County. When I went to law school in Houston at South Texas College of Law, I interned at the Harris County DA's office handling the JP Court on Precinct 4, Place 1 on Cypress Wood. And in the 184th District Court, I handled felony cases. After that, I started at Walker County DA's office. I was there for about 6 months. I was the chief prosecutor right there in Judge Sandals' court under Judge Ernst, who was filling in for him. I also handled bond forfeitures, and I handled all 4 of the JP courts in Walker County at that time. In 2002, the legislature created a new DA spot through Grimes County at the district attorney's office. I filled that spot, and I've been there for the past almost 16 years. My responsibilities there have been handling all 3 of the Justice of the Peace courts as the prosecutor. I've also handled the truancy cases there for the county attorney's office. I handle all the county court of law cases, all the misdemeanor cases in Grimes County. Recently, well, not recently, but I've been handling felony cases too, state jail felony, 3rd-degree felonies, and cases enhanced up from there. I'm also responsible for the bond forfeitures for all my cases, pretrial, intake, and all the way up through the appellate for all cases I handle. I'm also the only attorney there that handles civil forfeitures and asset forfeitures for the county. And so what I'm looking to do is bring my education and my dealing with the justice courts there, having helped them set up blood search warrants on DWIs for DWI refusal cases. I've helped them set up a rotational term instead of everyone just kind of getting called randomly. I'm the one who set up the DA's office website. Was integral in the choosing, and I'm also the system administrator for the software used by the DA's office, which is now used by the county court at law, and is about to be used by the county clerk's office as well. I want to use my experience dealing with technology, with IT, with all levels of court, from district court, appellate court, and JP court, home to where I've lived here since 1978, and I've lived on the same road since then. I've been married to my wife for almost 20 years. We've gone to the same church for almost 30 years, have 2 great kids that go to Magnolia School District, and I want to bring my experience with fresh ideas and build on a foundation that's there to make this the most efficient court it can be.
Okay, great. Thank you. Impressive resume. Under the general questions on our questionnaire, and it's in regards to, do you think judges should be elected by the people? The judiciary is seemingly a very obscure election, as I'm sure you've kind of found out, with practically unknown personalities in our campaigns. What's the best way for a citizen to find out about the judicial candidates like yourself?
The best way to find out is to get involved in the political party where you live, talk with people who are involved in those parties. Another way is now through social media and the internet. There's a vast wealth of information out there. The only drawback to the internet is, like my dad from Missouri said, only believe half of what you hear, none of what you see. So when you look on there, you have to invest yourself in learning about people. And so you have to get out and be involved. You can take the information from the web, from Facebook, from wherever you're going to get it from, and develop that information to find out if it's true or not, and what's bolstered and what's taken away from those people. And so it's definitely getting involved is the best way to learn about the people. Contacting those people directly and asking them questions. That's the absolute best way, because they're gonna tell you, listen to somebody else, what they've heard, what they've heard, doesn't really count. It's the same way in the court. It's just hearsay, and it's not reliable. So definitely, internet and going to the person themselves is the best way.
Okay. And of course, watching our interviews on
Absolutely.
video. when we
Yes.
Put it out after January.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's already a clock.
Dennis?
Okay, you are the only lawyer running in this race, and I know that other judges in higher courts make more money. Most JPs are not lawyers, so why did you choose to run for JP instead of one of the dozen or so other courts that are in this county?
That's an easy question. I've handled district court cases. I've tried 25 to life cases. I've tried DWIs. I've tried assaults, and I've tried a bunch of cases in JP court. I just had JP court a couple of days ago, yesterday actually. Of all the cases I've handled, of all the courts I've handled, I like JP court the best. The reason I like it the best is the vast majority of cases I deal with there, I deal with people one-on-one. And so I may get an attorney here, may get an attorney there. But what I enjoy the most is talking with people about the cases. And as a prosecutor, I'm sworn to seek justice. Justice may be a dismissal of a case, and maybe trying it all the way through to a jury. And so as a prosecutor, I'm giving wide ranges of punishment on cases. And so I like JP court the most because as opposed to district court, I don't get to talk with people. I get to talk with a witness or a police officer. In JP court, I almost never talk to an officer. I talk to the defendant. And I talk with them and get their side of the story, and I'll look at the case. And I've got no problem dismissing the case if it needs to be dismissed, or prosecuting it. But usually we can come to an amicable plea agreement and dispose of the case. And that's why I like JP court the best, is because I get to deal with the people, and I get to listen to their side of the story and look at the facts of the cases presented to me and make a decision. So that's why I want to run for JP.
And what part of your time is, what percentage is spent with JP courts?
I handle all three of the JP courts up there. I probably spend, they set them at different periods. So I would probably spend a day, a month in various ones while I'm up there for a pretrial setting. And then we'll also have settings for bench trials and jury trials. And so we have to set those dockets in between when I have free time from the district court dockets. We have two district courts. We have the 12th and the 506th. And between the county court of law.
Okay, all right, good deal.
You brought up local political involvement for people to find out about you. But what have you done locally to get involved for people to get to know you? Instead of them coming to search for you, what have you done out in the community with local political organizations or the involvement here in Montgomery County?
I've been going, since I've decided to run for judge back in early August, when I filed a notice for treasurer, I've been going to the Republican women groups, wherever I can meet them. Lake Conroe, Woodlands, Magnolia. I've gone to the Tea Party PACs. I've been to the Patriots PAC twice. I've been to yours the other night, and I'm here tonight doing this one. I've met with different luncheons when they're having them, and so I'm trying to get out and meet as many people who are politically not involved but want to know about the candidates as I can. And so it's basically become a second job to what I do in Grimes County.
But you haven't been politically involved here in your own county for up until now?
Correct.
Okay.
You've got a lot of work working with the state, and so I like the fact that you said that you want to make sure justice is done as a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Can you give us some idea of how your experience would relate to helping the defense present their story?
Yes, and as a prosecutor, one of the biggest things I have to do when I'm trying a case in JP court is to make sure, since I am an attorney and since I know all the codes and stuff, and presumably a defendant who's pro se does not know them, is I need to take care to make sure they're not beaten up. And so I'll ask questions of the officer that I think they should ask as well. Because my goal in the case is the same way I do with grand jury, same way I do with discovery. I put all my cards out there on the table for the case. And it's up to a jury or a judge to decide what goes on. And so it's my job as a prosecutor to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And if I can't win a case putting everything I have out there on the table, I shouldn't be winning the case. And so my goal is to make sure a defendant, even though he's representing himself, that I try to get as much out there as I can without crossing boundaries to make sure their side of the case is out there too. And so as a justice of the peace, we're allowed to develop cases and we're allowed to ask questions to help someone along or to bring out facts of a case. And so ultimately the goal of a JP is to listen to the facts of the case and try to bring that information out to make an educated decision based on experience and education and apply the law to those.
I think most of your work has been in a criminal background, but JP will also hear civil cases, and as a JP judge, you'll be hearing those. Can you explain, help us understand your experience in that area?
As far as civil stuff goes, my experience, I've dealt with wills and probate. I do firearms trusts for friends and family. I've been doing those for several years for National Firearms Act weapons. So I know about the civil side of that. I've also handled all the asset forfeitures for Grimes County since I've been there, and bond forfeitures. So I handle the civil side of those cases as well, as long as the criminal case is combined.
Thank you.
Okay, I agree with your goal of getting out to know everybody intimately and so forth, all the candidates, but with the number of candidates running and the limited time and energy available, I'm not sure that's as practical as ideal. So we tend to trust resources, recommendations. How do you vet your resources that you use, and what resources have you come to rely on?
The resources I've relied on most have been developing contacts through social media. So I can see what a candidate has posted on social media, and then I can follow up with people that I personally know, have dealt with these people. And so I can go on people I know and trust on their opinions of them as well. And so as you develop relationships with people through your life, that's the types of things you look for, and be able to count on somebody to tell you one thing or the other. And so I vet candidates through friends that know them. And so I have brothers that may know somebody who's running for office, or a sister-in-law who may know somebody who runs for office, somebody I've known for 20, 30 years. And so if they're confident in those people and they can tell me experiences they've had with them that bolsters what that candidate says, then I believe that's a candidate I can trust in.
Okay, so for statewide races, that same scenario probably doesn't apply. Are there any organizations, you cited individuals, which is great, but are there any organizations that you look to as reliable resources on candidates?
As far as statewide races, I look at more groups like yours, the political PACs, and groups that actually take the time to vet candidates and ask questions of them based on their historic voting records, their ties to the community, their ties to individuals, and what they've done in the past. And so if I can look at a group of people who take the time to educate themselves on that group, and their education has led them to firm beliefs on those people, then I can trust those people as well.
Okay, not including us, but can you cite one or two other organizations that you have come to rely on?
Yes, I belong to several gun clubs, and so they vet people too through maybe the NRA Business Alliance, different groups like that. The Republican National Convention, they deal with candidates too. And those people's websites and the people that put on their websites and follow those websites and post to those websites. And so being an IT guy, I can decipher where to get that information from. And so I can't call on a brother who knows so-and-so, who knows so-and-so, who knows so-and-so. But a much larger group, like yourselves or the Patriots PAC or somebody like that, that deals on a statewide level. So dealing with somebody like that.
Okay, Larry?
Along that line, our US Vote website's been up for about 5 years now, and we think that it's probably the most transparent that's been around. Do you remember the first time you've been on that website?
Yeah, when I signed up for it.
When was that? You have any idea?
I guess a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a couple weeks ago.
You've gone through it to see what we do.
Yes.
Okay. In our questionnaire, upon graduating, no, wait a minute, you mentioned that we need more trial and docket settings in one of the answers. Court needs more trial settings and more docket settings. Explain that, what that means, and how many do we do now in Precinct 3?
To be honest, I have no idea how many they do now. I've looked on their website, it doesn't list a docket, it doesn't list when you have court settings, it doesn't have any of that information. I contacted the court to try to have a meeting with the judge, she would not have a meeting with me. So as far as information goes on that, I couldn't tell you. I do know, having dealt with the county court, district court, and all the JP courts, having more trial settings tends to move more cases. So when the population knows and the residents knows what they can count on dealing with either a bench trial, knowing what the judge will do, or what a jury of their peers will do, they know how cases will turn out if they take it to court. And so having more docket settings to clear caseload, having more trial settings to show people what a potential outcome can be, moves cases along. And in doing that, people will come to agreements before a trial and before another court setting. And so you kind of cull the known cases into pre, and then the good trial cases that are actually triable will end up going to trial. And so you cull the herd by letting them know what's going to happen if they do something.
Just as a data point, JP3, from the records we've been able to see, dispenses more than twice as many cases as any other JP court in Montgomery County, and that case load is, I forget the number, over 16,000 per year.
Yes, sir.
So improving on that sounds like a royal challenge.
It's doable.
Maybe that's why she didn't call you back.
It's
Yeah.
doable.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Okay, you touched on asset forfeiture. Can you take us through the steps of the chain of custody of that process for a particular asset, when it's seized?
Yeah, absolutely. The way asset forfeiture works is I only file them on criminal cases because it's an asset that's tied to a criminal case. And so you file them under Chapter 59, and there's some other codes you file them under, but it's either item that's used in the commission of a crime or proceeds from a crime. And so in this case, what I normally seize would either be money or a vehicle. That's typically what I would seize. Sometimes I'll do firearms. And so in the case of, you can file them in DWIs, I don't file them in DWIs. Traditionally, I've only filed them in drug cases. Either somebody is making a hand-to-hand delivery with a federal agent or an undercover officer or an undercover person, a hand-to-hand buy. And they're using the vehicle to transport the drugs to the buy and leaving in the vehicle. So when you have a case where someone's making a hand-to-hand delivery on drugs, when they arrest the person, they take the vehicle. From the point of seizure of that vehicle or the money or whatever they're seizing, the state has 30 days to file a notice of forfeiture. That has to be served upon the defendant. It's either served in person, which I normally do if they're still in custody at the jail, so I know they get service, or it's mailed by certified mail. If we don't get anything back, like if they don't sign for it and it just comes back, there's other processes to take. You have to serve them by notification in a publication or something like that. And so in all my time at the DA's office, I've never actually had to try a civil forfeiture, because I look at the forfeiture cases and I decide if it's a good criminal case, and if the items are used for that criminal case, then I'll file the forfeiture. And so traditionally, the forfeiture cases are worked out as part of a plea on a felony case. And so, and there's times I've given stuff back. I've got no problem non-suiting something either. And so, if the criminal case is finished as part of the plea, then usually these people agree to forfeit the item to the state. If it's forfeited to the state, then the state has the ability to use it for law enforcement purposes. And so we've used it to purchase vehicles for our sheriff's department, purchase trailers for the sheriff's department, purchase weapons for the sheriff's department, the police department, other things like that, and that's what we use them for.
Okay.
Okay, just real quickly, does that forfeiture take place after the case is settled, or what happens to that material in the meantime?
It's held at the law. It's held at the sheriff's department or the police department or DPS. If it's a vehicle, it's traditionally held at the agency who seized it. If DPS seizes it, it's usually held at the sheriff's department in our county.
Okay.
The items are kept with law enforcement while the case goes throughout.
Okay.
And so if it's evidence of a case, it will come to court and be entered into criminal trial if it goes to trial.
Yeah. Well, it was just a pre-question.
Okay.
I was really going to ask you about mediation. It
Yes,
seems
sir.
like a lot of courts use mediation by default. Almost every case gets recommended for mediation. So is mediation, in your mind, a benefit to the defense, or to the plaintiffs, or to the court?
Of the three, it's a benefit to the court. I've dabbled in criminal mediation when I was at the Walker County DA's office, just a couple of them. I've not done one since I've been at the Grimes County DA's office. Mediation is used traditionally in civil stuff, and so as a thing, I wouldn't just order somebody to go do mediation. It's best to have people come in and argue in the court, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a tool for the court to use to try to get two parties to come to a mutual agreement without fighting it out in court. But it wouldn't benefit a defendant or a plaintiff, either one better than the other. It would be a tool for the court to use.
My personal observation is that they want to see who will cave, regardless of who's right, who's wrong, or what's legal. They want to see who will cave so they can dispose of it. And I know that it's used with some frequency in JP3. So what's your feeling on use it, and how often you think you will use it?
I would probably use it if the parties wanted to use it. I wouldn't see me just ordering somebody to go do mediation to try to banter it out. That's something for the court to do. They can take it to a jury and let 6 people decide what's best if they want. If they want to do a mediation, then they can go do it. But I don't see me just
Okay.
handing out mediations all the time.
That might be a little bit of a change. Good deal, thanks.
I'm gonna go back to civil asset forfeitures. Percentage-wise, how much of the civil asset forfeitures that y'all get, money-wise and stuff, actually goes to the sheriff's office? How much goes to the DA? How much goes to any other organization within your county?
We've not had an inter-office agreement in forever. The DA just never did one. And so everything that sees the DPS, if it's over a certain amount, they seize it themselves and they keep it. If it's below a certain amount, we seize it. So whenever we seize it, the DA's, it's awarded to the district attorney's office is who it's awarded to. And then we use a lot of it to go to the sheriff's department and the police department, depending on the agency that seized it. We don't always give them the money though either, because we can use it for law enforcement purposes. We'll use it to potentially, buy a printer for our office or something like that. As far as percentages go, probably 35% or so would go to the agencies. And that's speaking over a period of time, maybe 35-40% over a period of time.
To each agency's divvied out then?
Overall.
Okay.
Overall. In Grimes County, we don't seize a lot of stuff.
Okay, well, you had brought up that you basically are taking in money, weapons possibly, and automobiles. What about, if they have tools sitting around, or coffee pots sitting around, or any of the rest of that stuff that may be in the house? do y'all take those as well?
No, sir.
And you don't sell the stuff until after the case is closed?
Correct. Until the civil case is closed, we can't sell the items because it's not been forfeited to the state. And so it's held in evidence if it's in evidence. So let's say someone commits a aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and we seize the firearm as part of that offense. We seize the car because somebody was driving felony DWI or they were selling drugs out of it. Until the civil case is closed, we can't do anything with the property. And so the civil case and the criminal case are two completely separate cases. And so one could finish and the civil assets forfeiture is not part of the agreement over here. And so we'll end up having to try this as a civil case. And we have to prove it beyond a preponderance of the evidence that it was used in that commission. And so traditionally, if we can prove the criminal case by beyond reasonable doubt, clear and convincing evidence really isn't hard to show. And so that's why it's usually worked out in a plea agreement on a good criminal case.
Well, you may have some problems here in Montgomery County if all you're taking is vehicles, weapons, and money.
It's pretty much, I've seen some houses too, but they had a lot of marijuana plants in it.
Thank you.
So what factors would you look at to non-suit a forfeiture case?
I've filed forfeitures on cases and found out that people have purchased vehicles with non-drug proceeds. So let's say someone bought this vehicle and they were using this vehicle for whatever other purposes, and there's several different things. If it's used with proceeds from the offense, if it's used in the commission of the offense. And so let's say you bought a vehicle that's free and clear for your daughter, and she's driving around and she sells some drugs out of it. I can seize the vehicle because it's used in the commission of the offense. I probably won't follow through with it because you bought it. It's your car. If I can prove, if you knew about it, that's a whole different thing. And so I've non-suited cases. I've non-suited cases pursuant to plea and criminal cases just to let it go back to a family member. If I don't think I can prove the criminal case, it goes back. Usually it's based on the criminal case itself. And if I can prove the criminal case, then I can prove that they used that with it. So.
And within the JP court, what is the amount of, the value of the property that could be in a forfeiture case in JP?
But JP just handles civil stuff. They're not going to do asset forfeiture. That's handled in Grimes County in the district courts, and it may be handled over here in some of the district courts as well, but they handle the civil side of it.
All right, that's what I thought, but I thought I understood from the previous answer that you had a little bit of that in JP court somehow. I didn't
No, ma'am.
understand. Okay, that's just probably in relation to your civil experience.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it, okay, very good. And I am impressed that you can look at both sides of things, and as a judge, you definitely will be required to do that. So what other factors in your life experience do you think you can bring to the table and be a good JP judge?
Well, I grew up in Montgomery County as a boy, and I got in all kinds of trouble as boys do. I probably would have been in a whole different place now had I not met my wife, and raising kids now. So I mean, in going to the same church for almost 30 years, to being raised here with my kids, and just all my life experiences. My dad owned a business in Acres Homes in Houston. And so half my time I grew up in the country around here, riding dirt bikes, playing in the woods, fishing, hunting, and all that stuff. The other half was spent in Acres Homes on 249, which people were getting shot on the street next door. I've had cars stolen from the post office. And I've led a pretty fun life. And so, you know, I've raced cars, I've built guns, I, go to the gun range, I teach my kids to shoot. I've gotten my fair share of speeding tickets. I've never been sued before, so that's a good thing. But I've got a huge tool set of life experiences. I've visited, I don't know how many European countries. I've been all over the world with my parents through my teenage years, China, Russia, East Germany, West Germany before the wall came down. And so I have a large toolkit to look at facts of cases. And that's why one of the reasons I love talking to people is I've handled JP court so long, is I can kind of tell when someone's pulling the leg and when someone's not, and I can call it on it. And usually they're like, yeah, you're right. And so, and that's the benefits I have with my life experiences to come to this court.
Thank you.
Okay, notice that you have led multiple financial peace classes. Of course, the goal of Dave Grant is everybody should be debt-free. How have you applied that not only in your personal life, if you don't mind sharing, but especially in your business dealings? Do you believe that government offices ought to be debt-free, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, I absolutely do. We took financial peace our first time a little over 4 years ago. And it took a while for my wife to decide to cut up some Target cards because she got red points or whatever. We ended up cutting those. We have no credit cards. We've not had any in several years. We use strictly debit cards. We use check and cash. Like right now, I'll go to a restaurant, I use cash. The only place I'll use a debit card traditionally is the gas station. That way I can leave my kids in the car and not have to worry about going inside. As far as businesses go, I do gun trusts. That's the only other business I do. I've done photography stuff, but there's no debt in that either. And so our biggest goal is to, in leading those classes, is to show people that you can do it without a credit card and you can do it without debt. Growing up, I used to buy cars left and right, and I'd sign on a little thing and I'd pay them monthly. And now we don't. I sold 2 cars to buy a used car, pay cash for it, and that's what I'm driving now. It's a 2012 Charger, and I've driven it forever. It's got over 100,000 miles on it, and I'll drive it till it dies, and then I'll buy another used one.
Is that when you start getting your tickets?
No, it's a V6. I pared it down from a V12 from a V8 to a V6. So I do have a car I'm working on right now that could probably get me in trouble, but it's been 20 years in the making.
Wow.
Okay.
A while ago, Maureen was asking you about, being a prosecutor and then being a justice of peace. How do you balance that? And you kind of gave us because of your past experiences as a prosecutor, you feel like you can guide the other side if they didn't ask the questions that they needed to ask. That's what I received from you. Could you expound upon that a little bit more? If I were coming before you say I had something and I was going to come before you, it would be bothering me to know that I've got a longtime prosecutor going to be the judge. How in the world can I be assured, or can the public be assured that you're not going to let that prosecution side of your brain take over?
Well, like I said before, as a prosecutor in the Code of Criminal Procedure, I've sworn to seek justice. Jokingly people call you a persecutor. We've always been the guys, we've considered ourselves the guys that wear the white hats. And like I said, Texas has wide ranges of punishment. And it's like murder. You can get deferred adjudication or you can go away for life. And so there's facts that you look at as a prosecutor to seek justice. So you look at, intent, you look at, preparation, you look at how the crime was done, you look at criminal history, you look at all these different things to come to a decision as what you think the case, what a fair outcome of the case is. And so I would use that experience in the court as well. I'd use my experience looking at both sides of a case, judging the strengths and the weaknesses of cases. And as I said, if I can't put all my cards out there on the table as a prosecutor and win the case, I'm not going to try the case. Because you have to look at both sides of it. You have to judge your strengths, you have to judge the weaknesses of the case and make a decision. And that's what I love about defense attorneys. Their job is to make sure I do my job. And that's absolutely what they're there for. I don't hold anything against a defense attorney for doing that. It's my burden to prove a case.
Right.
And it's their job to make sure I do it.
Will this be financially a move up or down for you?
It would be financially move up.
Move up.
Mm-hmm.
How many employees does Precinct 3 have?
They have about 25. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have oversight to employees up there right now in Grimes County as a manager like you would JP here?
Yes, I do.
How many?
Our office is much smaller. We have the elected and 2 prosecutors. We have 2 investigators. We have a crime victim liaison, which we have through a Kids in Court grant. We have 3 legal secretaries. And so underneath the DA and the first assistant, I also have managerial duties over the other people. So I instruct investigators on what to do, both the investigators. I instruct both legal secretaries what to do, the ones that work for felony and county court stuff, because I handle cases in both of those. The crime victim liaison, I have her do things too, as far as contacting victims in cases before I get a chance to talk with them, to let them know when the cases are coming to court. And so, other than the first assistant and the district attorney, who have direct control over those people, I also have control over them, lesser to the 2 above me.
So you're number 3?
I'm number 3 out of the whole office.
Office, okay.
I've been number 3 for 16 years.
Okay. Let's see, on the, again, general questionnaire, what differentiates you from your opponents? You indicated that you're the only candidate allowed under Texas law to review and sign blood draw evidentiary search warrants on DWI cases. What happens on this if one of your opponents is elected? What's the downside for the county if they don't have that skill set?
The way the code works is there's only certain judges who can review blood draw search warrants, where you're actually going into somebody's body. In Grimes County, up until October 1st, we did not have a law, so we didn't have a court of record. The 3 JPs over there could do blood draw search warrants on blood test refusals. Over here, as a JP, if the other courts who do the blood draw warrants now would include me, I can do the search warrants. I can alleviate some of the if there's backlog or pressure or some of the duties there to do blood draw search warrants. It's basically the same thing as a death inquest. It's just I don't have to go anywhere, because most of the time you can just do it on an iPad or a computer or something, and you review the affidavit, the probable cause, and decide whether or not it's there or not, and sign off and send it back. If one of the opponents is elected, they cannot do that. And so I'm not saying that they would include me in on this, but they could if they wanted to. So
What is the other car you're working on?
I've got a 1959 Impala SS convertible.
Wow.
So who's the other prosecutor? Is that Joanne?
Joanne Linzer is the other prosecutor. Andrea Bender's the DA.
Yeah. And what's the difference between the work that you do and what Joanne does? Any?
Joanne handles no misdemeanor cases, unless she chooses to do it because it's tied with one of her cases. She handles true second-degree cases and true first-degree cases, so aggravated assaults with deadly weapons, drug charges of a certain amount, thefts of a certain amount, true second or first-degree offenses, where you can go to prison for 2 to 20 or up to life. And like I said, I handle state jail in third degrees that could be enhanced up. So one of my last felony jury trials was a 25 to life failed to register sex offender case. It starts off as a lower case, but due to his criminal history, it moves up. Joanne will handle true first and true second degrees. She handles sexual assaults of children, sexual assaults of other people, aggravated assaults, murder, and all those types of offenses. So she handles primarily the sex offenses and true first and true second.
Okay. In your discussion of civil assets, that looks like a paragraph that you wrote just to please us.
Okay.
Do you have that flexibility? Do other DAs have flexibility on whether or not they want to seize assets?
Absolutely.
Well, why do we hear so much bad stuff about that? It sounds like all you hear is they seize everything they can get and then the money disappears.
It's same thing with prosecuting cases. It all comes down to seeking justice, and it depends on the prosecutors, it depends on backgrounds, it depends on the area you're practicing in. And so every prosecutor has the choice whether or not they're going to file a case, whether it's a theft case or an assault case or a DWI case, if it's a civil forfeiture. the DA's office is one of the most powerful offices in the state.
I know.
And they can make choices that really affect people's lives. And so that's the choices we make as prosecutors, whether or not we decide to go on a case or not. And it's up to the elected ultimately to make the decision.
And who is the DA superior?
In Grimes County,
Yeah, any county.
well, the district attorney.
Who is there? Who is their boss?
There isn't one. It's the public.
There goes the problem.
Well, laws have changed now, and prosecutors can be held liable now for cases. It's mostly to deal with the discovery under like the Michael Morton Act. And so, but ultimately, the district attorney, unless they break a law, do a crime, something like that, let's say they use asset forfeitures to buy themselves a pool or buy themselves a golf cart or a set of golf clubs, they can be prosecuted for that.
By
So,
By who?
by the grand jury, the special prosecutor.
Well, that's all my time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We probably have about 3 minutes, just enough to get around, and then we'll wrap it up with your closing.
Okay.
We started at 6:07.
I was late.
Yeah, well,
We got a docket backlog.
Let's work on it.
just enough to go around. We'll
Talk fast.
We'll be fast.
That doesn't happen very often. So I appreciate your law background. I've never been a fan of, there's been a movement in Texas to make it so that all JPs have to be lawyers. I've not been a big fan of that. Can you tell me your feelings about that?
I don't know if y'all have read what I've put out there. I look as JP court as the people's court. It sounds corny, but that's what it is. It's where, you don't like something I'm doing because I'm doing something to hurt your property. We go to court over that. We don't go to fisticuffs. We don't go yelling at each other in our front yards. We go to court over that. And so it's a court of the people. It's the court where most people will get their first contacts with either law enforcement or the court system. And so I don't see a reason to mandate attorneys being JPs or JPs being attorneys. I don't see a reason to mandate that. The benefit of having a lawyer there is they know the evidence rules. They know the Texas rules of evidence. They know the rules of civil procedure. They know the criminal codes of procedure. They know those things. At least they're supposed to know those things. A JP over time can learn those things. Anyone can learn something. But the benefit of having a lawyer in there right off the cuff is they know the stuff. Does it benefit the parties? Yes. Because as a lawyer, you know the intricacies of getting evidence in. You know when it should come in, when it shouldn't come in. And you know how to apply case law with the Constitution to those facts in the case. But really, anybody can do that once they've been there long enough. I mean, police officers aren't lawyers, but they learn the law over a period of time. Of course, in my shoes as a prosecutor, when officers have questions, I'm the one they call, ultimately. So I've assisted on, crime scenes, I've assisted on autopsies, search warrants, grand jury subpoenas for law enforcement. And so I don't see a reason to require a JP to be a lawyer, but it's definitely a boon to do it.
And I did want to ask about a medical examiner. In this county, we don't have a medical examiner, so that falls to the JP. Could you explain to us what your role would be in that and what background you have that would facilitate that role?
Oh, absolutely. I've worked on all kinds of criminal cases. I've assisted in drafting search warrants on homicide cases, on all kinds of stuff. Grand jury subpoenas for documents. I've gone to crime scenes. I've gone out when they've executed search warrants. I've gone out to the homicide scenes, suicide scenes. I've participated in multiple autopsies. They're observing what goes on. In reviewing cases for presentation to grand jury or for trial, I've reviewed crime scene pictures. I've reviewed autopsy pictures, pictures of assaults, pictures of this. And so ultimately, law enforcement will ask us to look at cases and we make the decision to present it to grand jury. And so I've been doing that for like I said, I interned here at the DA's office in Montgomery County working homicides. And so I've worked all aspects of these cases. I've been on call since I got out of law school. And so I carried what we call the bat phone in Walker County when law enforcement needed questions answered dealing with cases. And the same thing here. I've gone to crime scenes at 2 in the morning. I've gone to crime scenes at 1 in the afternoon. And so my ability to look at crime scenes and to look at the pictures and my ability to be on call as I have been 24 hours a day, 7 days a week since my inception as a lawyer benefits someone doing a call like that. I'm used to being called out if need be. The only difference here is I'm a lot closer because now if I get called out, I have to drive to Grimes County. So it's a lot closer here. It's a lot easier for me to do it here.
Thank you.
Okay, obviously you have filed to run for the JP3 position. How well do you know the current JP3 justice and the system, the environment? You mentioned 25 employees. Is that, if I don't reflect on Goldilocks too much, is that too much, too little, or just right? What about the budget? Have you looked at what the budget is? And I know you've made a lot of suggestions about IT. Do you think that would fit within the budget? So how well do you know the current situation there?
Not well at all. I've tried, like I said, I've tried to have meetings over there, and I have not been able to. I've met with some of the other JPs and discussed software with them and how they run their courts. I've not been able to with JP3. As far as the budget goes, the IT stuff I'm talking about bringing in, it's not expensive at all. What I have seen work in courts is, let's say you have individuals that come in and they want to file a lawsuit, or someone's coming in because they want an occupational driver's license because their license has been suspended, or their handgun license has been suspended, or they have criminal cases. What I would like to do is introduce some type of, not necessarily IT, but a software hardware thing where you walk in. I've been to her office, I've gone in and looked, and it's just looks like a regular old office lobby. If you could put some type of TV or something out there rolling a PowerPoint of some sort that says, okay, if you have this type of criminal offense, let's say it's speeding, you could be eligible for defensive driving if this,
Kiosk.
deferred adjudication if this, not necessarily a kiosk, but something that answers questions. If you're sitting out in the lobby and there's 30 of y'all out there, 40 of y'all out there, when you go in and meet with the prosecutor, he has to explain all these different things to all these different people. Same thing if you go up there to file a civil lawsuit. You don't know what's going to cost. You don't know what you have to do to file it. If there's something rolling on the TV while you're waiting in line, those answers are there. So when you get to the window, the clerks don't have to spend 5 or 10 minutes explaining that to you. And so you take the time answering the questions before they get there, which cuts down the service time, which increases productivity of your staff. If you take an hour of answering questions out of their day, they have an hour to do other stuff. And setting up a PowerPoint, I do that for jury trials. I do that for presentations when I teach law enforcement stuff. That's no big deal. It's the cost of getting a TV, which is what, a couple $100. So.
Okay.
If you find out that there's more cases than the court can handle, how do you handle the overload? Can you go to other JPs and ask them to help?
You can ask for a visiting judge to come in. Same way they do with district court and county court. The same way you do if you had to recuse yourself on a case. You can bring in other justices to take over some of the caseload. I don't know how her court is ran. I don't know exactly what her caseload is. I know it's a lot. I know it's about twice what the other JPs handle. But handling a large caseload, I mean, if you know how to handle cases and you know how to move cases, you can handle a large caseload.
Will you do weddings?
No. I think there's enough there to keep somebody busy handling just the court function and not weddings.
Quick question before we go into closing. Do you believe in term limits?
Yes.
How many do you plan to serve? How long?
Well, I plan on serving no more than 3. I believe with the court, as it is, I probably need to get my feet wet for a little bit and figure out exactly how this court has been ran, and the changes I can make to impact the cases that are there, and to treat the new cases that come in to try to get them in some type of order that would work better. But three terms with the JP is, I think, is a good one. It's a local level. Theoretically, people try to learn who they're electing in JP. The sad thing that's come to my attention is asking people, explaining to people I'm running for JP3 here. A lot of people don't even know who their JP is. But I mean, I think 3 terms is good for a JP because they're a very local race. And the people who elect them are wanting somebody to work with them.
Okay. If you like, you can take up to 5 minutes closing, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay.
I would like to thank y'all for having me out here tonight. I believe my experience, my education, and my abilities are there to be the best JP for this race. I know I can do a really great job as a JP. I could do a great job stepping into the bench tomorrow. I want to let the public know that as a prosecutor, it doesn't make a difference one way or the other taking the bench with me, because seeking justice is what I have done my entire legal career. And as a judge, I believe justice is what should be sought after as well. And I would continue doing that, looking at both sides of the cases and applying my law degree, my criminal justice degree, and my experience representing the state in all levels of court that I've dealt with, from justice court to district court to the appellate court, to make a difference in this county and in this precinct I've called home since '78. And so I just want to make a difference here.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you coming out, and good luck on your campaign.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
just a couple minutes, we'll do a